Well, good morning and welcome to the AM News here on the AM Show. My name is Enima Dor, and our very first story this morning, a 7-member panel of the Supreme Court presided by Justice Jones Doche has overturned its earlier decision to disallow one of its own, Justice Clemens Honyanuga, from sitting as a trial judge in the case involving the former Cocoa Board CEO, Dr. Stephen Opuni, and businessman Seydou Agongo. According to the courts, the initial allegations of compromise against Justice Honyanuga are unfounded. Meanwhile, the court has also dismissed claims of bias raised against Justice Jones Doche by lawyers of Dr. Opuni. In its ruling, the court said there's no compelling basis to impugn the neutrality of senior Supreme Court Judge. Pakwesi Shandorf was in court for Joy News, and he reports.
On Tuesday, October 26, the Supreme Court was faced with two critical issues. The first, Attorney General Godfrey Adame was praying the Apex Court to set aside its earlier majority ruling of July 28, which disallowed one of its justices, Justice Clemens Honyanuga, from sitting as trial judge in the case involving Dr. Stephen Opuni and Seydou Agongo. The second issue was an allegation by lawyers of Dr. Stephen Opuni challenging the neutrality of Justice Jones Doche to hear the review application filed by the Attorney General. At the start of proceedings, lawyers for Dr. Opuni raised an objection challenging the propriety of the Attorney General to argue in court. According to them, since the AG was already the plaintiff in the review case, he should not be heard on the matter. The court upheld the objection and barred the Attorney General from making submissions before the bench. He was, however, represented by colleague lawyers who appeared with him in court. The court then proceeded to determine the two substantive issues accordingly. On the allegations of bias against Justice Jones Doche, the court presided over by Justice Gabriel Puaman held that there was no substantial evidence to impugn the integrity of the senior Supreme Court judge to sit on the case. According to the 3-member bench, even though Justice Jones Doche had a recent interaction with the Attorney General, there was no incriminating evidence to question his neutrality. The court subsequently dismissed the claims against Justice Doche. Having made this pronouncement, Justice Doche assumed his seat as the presiding judge in the review application by the Attorney General. In a ruling read by him, the court upheld the review application and cleared Justice Honyanuga to sit on the trial involving the former Cocoa Board CEO and businessman Seydou Agongo. Dr. Opuni, Mr. Agongo, and Agricult Ghana Company Limited are facing 27 charges of willfully causing financial loss of 217 million Ghana cedis to the state through separate fertilizer supply contracts between 2014 and 2016.
Now, 29-year-old Joanna Kra, who faked her kidnapping in Takrady in the Western region, has been sentenced to 6 years imprisonment with hard labor by the Takrady Circuit Court. She was initially sentenced separately based on her 2 charges which she pleaded guilty to at the same court on Monday. Nathalia Kwanzaa was in court for Joy News.
Joanna Kra, the 29-year-old who is at the center of the recent fake kidnap case in Takrady, arrived at the Takrady Court A this morning looking remorseful. She was immediately ushered into the courtroom from a taxi by 2 police CIDs. In court, the presiding judge, Michael Kujo-Ampedu, demanded that a pregnancy test should be conducted on the convict before he gives out the ruling. She was immediately rushed out of the courtroom by the 2 CIDs towards the European hospital and brought back after close to 1 hour. Her case was recalled and she was sentenced based on 2 charges she had pleaded guilty to on Monday when she appeared before court. Her first charge, the deceit of public officers, for which she was given a 6-year sentence. The convict's second charge was publication of false news with the intent to cause fear and panic, which brought her a sentence of 2 years imprisonment with hard labor. The court added that the verdict was also meant to send a strong signal to residents to desist from venturing into this seemingly growing trend of fake kidnappings. Jonathan Awotwe, a brother of Susan Awotwe, one of the accomplices speaking to the media, says the sentence will serve as a deterrent to everyone within the Western region.
As a citizen, if such cases being ongoing in this region, especially Western region, I think the court has used her as a scapegoat so that people will learn. But what I would say is nobody should try. Nobody should try to practice it. It's not a good act. So that's what I would tell the nation, that it is fair justice that the court has made, but if something will be done, that will be later issue. I'm so sad. I'm so sad. But as a Christian, I will say whatever the Lord will say, nobody can say something about it. So this will be a lesson, even to me as a brother, if I have even think to do such it is a lesson to me.
Some residents in Takrady have been speaking to Joy News after the sentence.
6 years maybe in fact. So how many money or
Personally, I think the 6-year sentence is too much. Even though she has made a mistake, I think the judge should reduce the sentence, but I understand that some mistakes are not desirable. So we must be careful with the steps that we take, because as she goes to jail, she is going to be affected, and so we should all learn from it.
You saw us they were kidnapped. You saw us they
Kidnapping is becoming a trend here in Takrady. So if they do that, others will also learn from it. But I think they should consider reducing the 6-year sentence because she is a young lady. At least 3-year sentence would be better, since it is a caution. What these people are doing is disgracing the people of Takrady. If they need financial help, they should ask for it, rather than fake a kidnapping. If this happens again, the culprits will be given 10 years imprisonment.
Even though the years are many, I wouldn't say it's harsh. I feel what they are doing is to deter other people from doing same, because it's making Takrady unpopular. Where else would you hear that someone has been kidnapped? The word kidnap is very alarming. So why would you say you were kidnapped when you weren't? What the judge has done is a principle that no one would want to break. Ladies these days are stubborn. They love money. I think the 6 years is small. 10 years would have been better, so that next time someone else would learn from it. When they do it, they will get 20 years. However, the court reduced the cumulative jail term to 6 years because Joanna Kra is a first-time offender, showed remorse during her initial appearance on Monday, coupled with the fact that she has a 3-year-old son. While in prison, her child is to be in the custody of her adopted father, whom she had attempted to extort money from by faking the kidnapping incident. In Athalia's report for Joy News.
Okay, so moving on, the minority in Parliament is accusing the National Petroleum Authority of illegally collecting levies on petroleum products. According to the ranking member on the Finance Committee, Cassiel Atuforsen, these levies have been reviewed upwards by 200% since the NPP assumed office. We'll hear from him shortly, but first, his colleagues on the Mines and Energy Committee are demanding the removal of the special petroleum taxes imposed on petroleum products from the 2022 budget. According to the ranking member, John Jinapo, this would provide some respite for Ghanaians suffering from the hikes in fuel prices. Kwesi Parker-Wilson reports.
We hold the view that the special petroleum tax imposed on petroleum products must be suspended in the 2022 budget. This will provide some respite for Ghanaians from the agonizing high cost of fuel at the pumps. Why do we make this claim? If you look at the 2021 budget, the benchmark petroleum price was pegged as $54.75 per barrel. Today, as we speak, the world market price has risen to $85, representing an increment of 55%. So if you take what we projected and what is actually happening, it means that petroleum prices have increased by 55%. As a net exporter of petroleum prices, we have done the computation and we have come to a conclusion that from the initial amount of $800 million that we were projecting to receive, we are likely to hit $1.2 billion by the end of the year. So we are moving from $800 million to $1.2 billion. The special petroleum tax was imposed because of shortage of revenues, especially from exports. And so if today there's a reverse and the exports are reining in all these revenues, it only makes sense that in the 2022 budget, this tax ought to be suspended.
Ranking member on the committee, John Denapor, who addressed the media, also cautioned Dr. Bawumia, the vice president, against false claims about the state of the Ghanaian city.
The economic management team, under the leadership of Dr. Bawumia, have lost it and must sit up. Indeed, they must be proactive and work with the Bank of Ghana to release forex as and when necessary. We also particularly wish to caution the Vice President to refrain from making false and unwarranted claims about the Ghanaian currency, since that goes to affect the credibility of information emanating from his outfit. You will recall, members of the press, that soon after declaring that he has successfully arrested the dollar and handed the key to the IGP, the cedi recorded its worst performance in 2019. The cedi depreciated by 13%, and that was the worst in 4 years. And so we wish to advise the chairman of the economic management team that he should move away from these wild, unsubstantiated claims.
Okay, so now we hear from Atu Forson, who demanded that the NPA halts the collection of the United Petroleum Price Fund.
In fact, going through the Public Financial Management Act, Section 47, and let me read Section 47. Section 47(1) says, a covered entity, and NPA, the National Petroleum Authority, is a covered entity. A covered entity shall not collect or receive revenue except where the covered entity is authorized by an act of parliament to collect and receive the revenue. Clearly, the National Petroleum Authority is collecting these revenues illegally. Illegally. So they are engaging in an act of an illegality. They are acting with impunity. And we want to serve a notice to the NPA that from today, they should stop collecting the UPPF, they should stop collecting the bust margin, and stop collecting the fuel marking margin, because it is illegal. Failure from tomorrow, I'm going to work with my colleague, the Honorable John Denapor, aka the Black JJ, to bring a motion before Parliament to compel the National Petroleum Authority not to collect these revenues any longer because they are illegal.
The minority in Parliament has described as unconstitutional attempts by the Greater Accra Regional Minister Henry Quartey to ban the use of tricycles on the highways. The NDC MPs argue that the move has no backing of the law. The regional minister, as part of efforts to enforce road regulations in the capital city, has announced a ban on aboboyas from the motorway effective November 1st. But ranking member on the Roads and Transport Committee, Kwame Agboja, wants the minister to seek parliamentary approval before the operationalization of the bylaws.
They are not going to allow aboboya, in other words, tricycles that carry especially refuse from households and other things, and attempt to take them to Tema where the recycling plant is. My brothers and sisters, you are aware the reason that aboboya are doing that is because that is where the treatment plant is. We don't have enough treatment plant within Accra itself. So if you see them on the highway going to Tema, it's simply because there's no other way they can dump it. So if the minister says somewhere next year they are going to stop them, let him be aware he's overstepping the authority under his watch. There's no law in this country that gives power to a regional minister to determine which vehicles drive on which roads. That is within the purview of the National Road Safety Authority and the Ministry of Road and Transport. The only way you should believe what the regional minister is saying is if he can quote a law that backs it. District assemblies and regional coordinating councils can't make a law and say vehicles cannot drive on a particular road. Indeed, I would have expected that we could even have a cycle lane along the motorway. So somebody who lives in Tema, who likes biking, can ride the motorbike or bicycle from Tema to Accra. We don't have that one now.
The regional minister, however, insists all 20 MPs in the Greater Accra region gave consent for the ban to take effect.
So where you have the likes of Ayoso West Wagon, Tema West Municipal Assembly, Ashaman, and then TMA, in whose jurisdiction these menace and nuisance are being committed, and then they come together, and this is not an only omnibus. All the 29 assemblies have passed a bylaw, and they are saying that because of A, B, C, D, and you have alluded to the fact, say, when you go to places, you travel a lot, you are a ranking member. I want you to point one to me in any of the developed countries where there's an aboboya on the motorway. Just give me one for listeners to listen to. Because even the Motor Traffic Regulations Act, LI 2180, there is a particular speed limit that a vehicle should be able to go on a road. Are you telling me that aboboyas meet those speed limits as a ranking member of roads and transport? Are you telling the whole world that aboboyas, they meet that this thing? Then I'm afraid, what are we doing in Parliament then? In any case, I'm a member of Parliament. I'm not an assemblyman. I'm a colleague like you. And I'm also in Parliament, so I understand parliamentary procedures. I don't think you should make it look like I don't understand parliamentary procedures.
Moving on, there shall be no delays in passing the anti-gay bill as the Speaker of Parliament makes it a top priority on his first day back from recess. In fact, the sitting of the Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee considering the bill will be public, as the Speaker insists the public ought to know the stance of every single member of Parliament on the bill. This assurance comes on the heels of agitations for the debate on the controversial bill to be made public. In his welcome address to the House after a 3-month break, Speaker of Parliament Alban Bachman called for an honest conversation on the bill, devoid of political and religious sentiments.
Parliament reconvened today to continue with its activities. This is after the House went on a recess for almost 3 months. The Speaker indicated that the debate on the anti-LGBT bill and the decision of the House would be made public.
I know Ghanaians are expectant, and I know we have over 100 petitions before the Committee on Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs, but we'll try not to allow any filibustering of this bill. Because it's not only Africa, the whole world is looking for the outcome of this bill. And so we will not just allow people to come and try to delay the process. We'll make the process public, and I support what the majority leader said. The sitting of the committee will be public, and the decision of this House will be public. We will want to know where each member of Parliament stands.
The minority leader, Haruna Idrisu, agrees with the Speaker.
And trust that our Committee on Constitutional Legal will engage appropriately the people of Ghana and the petitioners. Mr. Speaker, it is not for nothing that Article 106 provides that bills are gazetted for purpose of elucidating input from the public. And it should not stay per outstanding orders more than 3 months within the committee. We expect the Committee of Constitutional Legal to lead Parliament living up to that litmus test of an anti-LGBTQI legislation and nothing more. one that reflects our values, our morality, and the wishes of the generality of our society.
On the part of the majority leader, Osei Mensah Bonsu, he dismissed claims that the NPP is not in support of the bill.
When people begin to talk to that issue, that, oh, let there be sunshine on the consideration of the bill, I wonder what people are talking about. Because the consideration of every bill is here in plenary. The TV cameras are here. They have always been here. So for people who raise issues and make it appear as if we consider saying in some quiet place outside the chamber and then nobody sees what goes on, the Speaker, really, an unfortunate picture is painted outside. Unfortunately, some colleagues in this House also added to the confusion and made it appear as if Parliament has been doing things that are untoward.